All right, guys, it's Copper Cutlass, and we went out for our first points race of the year. And bear with me, this video is gonna be slightly long, like they usually all are, but there's a lot to kind of talk about, and it's gonna, kind of explain the last few weekends where we went out, and it's actually also gonna go back to last summer. So, uh, first things first. The weather sucked. Uh, Density altitude is like 2,800, almost 2,800. Humidity was like almost 80%. Uh, we had a 20 plus mile per hour headwind that kept switching and moving around, and you'd see guys either run way slower than their dial or faster because they caught a break in the wind. So, first round, I went out. I put a 12.0 on the rear glass, and I went at 12.1 because I pedaled it because I was going to break out. I was catching them really fast, and I got a great light, but there wasn't enough there to make up for it. So the margin of victory was like 4.5 hundredths. I think the difference in our reaction time was like 3 something hundredths. I needed to run like a 12.06 on a 12.0 dial to potentially have won that round. Because it comes down to your reaction time and your dial in. He ran closer to his dial in. I got a good light, but that's racing. I got a long ways to go in experience in that, but I didn't go red during eliminations, so I guess it's not all that bad. Although I did go red in the video that I'm going to put at the end of this, so don't judge me. That was after we went out first round. We went into diagnostic mode. So I started to try to figure out why I still have this top end pop. And I put fresh plugs, new cap and rotor, and first things first, my plugs all read lean. Even across all 8 cylinders, but they're reading lean. And when I mean lean, I mean like I can afford to go up quite a few jet sizes and still probably be fine. But lean is mean we're making power and we're not killing anything. So, but what my AFR is telling me and what my spark plugs are showing me are two totally different things. So I need a new AFR gauge. And if I get a new one and it still reads like that and my plugs look lean, then we're going to tune for mile an hour. Because I've had my reservations on that AFR gauge for a while, so I think it's time to buy a new one. So I'm just going to get a whole new wideband gauge and go from there, because it's telling me lightly driving around the pits that it's at like 10.5, which is like I'd be soaking the plugs. And then going down the track, it's even worse, 9.8. Like, and I know the right way is you're supposed to pull over and check the plugs right away. But if I was running that fat for that many runs that we put on that day, yesterday, those would have been charred. They would have looked horrible. No, these plugs still look like brand new, and they're definitely on the lean side, and the fuel ring is down on the porcelain, and we're checking it with a little doctor's like ear cleaner checker dealy. And so you get the magnifying glass and you can see the fuel ring. It's way down there on the porcelain. So I think we can afford to jet up, which was the first thing I actually did to try to fix that pop. And this was a dart throw because we're already seeing that our spark plugs were kind of lean. And I'm like, you know what? We'll go 2 jet sizes up front and rear, see if it changes. Our plug reading did get a little bit better. It's going in the right direction. But I didn't want to keep going, because I really hung on to the RPM and it still did it. So I'm like, it's definitely not fuel. It still trucks on down the track. If it was fuel, it would have probably gotten worse under load if it was like a lean spike. I just thought maybe something mechanical with the transmission or something was just right at that point when I was shifting where cylinder pressure may have spiked and there was a hot spot and it was just, but it's not. That was, again, a dart throw. The next step was probably what I should have done from the get-go. I had brought a bunch of distributors with me because my buddy needed some parts for a big block Chevy that he's putting together. And I have a box with a bunch of HEI distributors. Why? Because I ran them for 20 years. So I had one ready to go with a lockout plate on it. You know, it was actually the same one that gave us a bunch of issues last summer, if you guys go back in some of those videos. And let me explain to you why. So on that distributor, and I'm sorry if I occasionally look down. These longer videos, I have to keep track of stuff, so my list fell off my prop, so I'm kind of reading it off of here. But either way, the lockout plate keeps everything from moving, but when I rev it, the time goes backwards. And I forgot all about that. So I stabbed the distributor and I set my timing to 34, and I'm like, well, it's locked out. Should be dead on 34. Let's go make a run. This would be diagnostic run number 2 after the jetting. So my buddy goes up there with me and we make a run. 12:45 at 105. It really fell off. I'm like, something's off. Did I leave the distributor loose? Nope. Put the timing light on it, rev it up. Timing is going backwards. So the timing would retard enough to slow the car down, but not to hurt anything. So I wound it up to like 7,200 RPM, which was actually not bad because the engine wasn't winding up as fast. So I got to get it to 7,200 to rule out, I guess, anything mechanical. But also not having that timing also is not good for diagnostic purposes because now you're igniting the fuel way after, you know, your peak cylinder pressure point. So if you guys, you know, before top dead center is you're igniting, you know, the fuel while it's still coming up. Retarded timing is when it's on its way down. So you're not making as much power because you're not catching enough of that energy, which that energy is heat. And if there was like a lean spike or something, that's why the whole timing thing plays a role. But either way, it wasn't right. So I took the distributor back out, took out the lockout plate. I had enough parts to put a, center plate, weights, and unfortunately, all I had was stiff springs. So with the stiff springs, the car ran a 12.0 at 109, which was really close to our best run of the day, which was an 11.98 at 110. So that distributor gave us a lot of problems, and that's probably why. But I know why. I was doing some reading, and sometimes there's differences in the dwell between the pickup or the module and the pickup on the timing gun and this, that, and the other. And people were saying that it's just a delayed timing. It'll go back to where it's supposed to within a certain time range, which is not the case at all. Not the case at all. So we're going to run that HEI with a curve kit, or put with a timing curve in it, and just put light springs on it. And then my Pro Billet that I had in the car, it's got a timing curve. It all kicks in at 1,800 RPM. So I don't need to lock it out. I can, I launch at 2,000. There's no need to lock it out. There's pros and cons to locking it out, but I think for me, there's no point. I can have a tight curve and it's fine. So the reason why it was breaking up on the top end is because I think now I did a little bit of reading on the MSD, and I found a schematic minus the output control. So the output control is where you would put your two-step, your modules, your RPM modules. It's all controlled resistance. So if you put a two-step on there and you're dialing it in, those are potentiometers. They're adjustable resistors. So let's go back to when I took the rear end out of the car and I did a little bit of welding on it. And this would have been over the winter. So I had disconnected all of my main power stuff to the MSD. Now, I did not unplug everything off of the MSD, which still is grounded. So in theory, I could have fried out that circuit on the MSD, and whatever resistance is there, it thinks it's 7,000 RPM, or it has a 7,000 RPM chip in it, because it was doing it without a chip. So that's all the problem was, is the ignition box thinks that it's set to 7,000, but it's not. So, which again, I would love to take that ignition box apart and really find out if that is the case. But I'm going to give that box back to my buddy Dave, because I gave him a box to have tested, and it tested out. So we're going to put that in the car and see how that works out. If not, we got our trusty HEI, which is totally fine. But I will say the MSD does work really well down low. After driving around with it, the car has really good characteristics around in the street and everything. And it runs really, really just really good down low. It's crisp. I am a fan after running it and all that. So the HEI, it's noticeable down low, the differences and whatnot, but whatever. Either way, I got another MSD box that I had found, and some time ago he got it tested for me, and I'm going to put that in the car and wire it in and see how it goes. But I may have to redo my whole panel, because now I have to think things a little bit differently. Again, running an MSD, all this stuff is like new to me, and everybody does it differently, and I just did it the best way that I thought would work. And I think ultimately I probably ended up frying that circuit welding on the frame with all the other outputs hooked up onto it. Even though I had everything disconnected, you know, it's like working on a car. You have to disconnect the negative, you have to disconnect the battery, especially if it's like an electric vehicle. You definitely want to pull the plug on the batteries. So, yeah, pretty much the ignition box was thinking that it was at 7,000 RPM set, you know, or maybe something internally corroded or fell apart or something, and there's just the right amount of resistance, because ultimately the, like I said, the modules, the chips, your two steps that you hook up are just adjustable potentiometers or resistors, and that's what it meters. So if there's something wrong in that circuit and it's building enough resistance for the box to think that it's got a chip in it, something is wrong with that circuit. But looking at the schematics of the MSD, that is like a secondary circuit within the box that controls that output. So obviously it doesn't affect anything down low until you hit that point that it's supposed to control. Now obviously that output can be changed to where it can control it, because you can put a two-step on it, control it down low, but it's controlling it at this particular point because of the way that it fell apart internally, or I fried it. Whichever way, it is what it is. We found the problem, we solved the problem, and we got a couple of things to take care of. Nothing major. The car is running good. Everything is good. Ran what it should have ran. So again, for the amount of passes that I made, those plugs look like they are brand new. So I think the carburetor is just a hair lean. And we're going to jet it up, but I don't want to do it blindly. So I have to definitely try to get an AFR before the next race. An AFR gauge before the next race, so I can see what I'm doing. And obviously, we're going to have to run the car kind of as is until we can do our crap after we're done with eliminations and stuff, which our next race is in a couple of weeks. So we got some time to put the MSD box in it, or if not, maybe we'll just run the HEI and keep things simple for now, because It's our trusty HEI. It always works. It just doesn't work as nice as the MSD because, you know, you get all that extra spark down low and cleans up the mixture and it makes it crisp and all that good magical stuff. So either way, thanks for sticking around if you did. But there was a lot to kind of unload there, as this has been an ongoing situation. But we got it figured out. That's the good part. The fun part, which is not going to be fun, is putting an MSD back in the motherfucker. I put the panel in there pretty good. Getting it out. It's going to suck. So, share, like, subscribe, follow me on Instagram. See you guys around.